They discovered shocking connections between Korean shamanism and ancient biblical practices. Few knew what truly happened that night in the small village of Gwangju, nestled among misty mountains and echoing whispers. The flickering lights illuminated a gathering beneath the ancient trees, where shadows danced unpredictably. A shaman, with eyes like molten glass, stood in the center, chanting in a language that tasted of ancient secrets. Around him, villagers watched with bated breath, hearts racing, unsure if they were about to witness a miracle or a curse. The air crackled with energy, the same energy felt centuries ago in the dusty streets of Jerusalem. Stories had crossed oceans and time of prophets walking, of divine encounters, and of spiritual rituals unseen. The roots of faith that tied these distant sacred practices together felt undeniable now. What power linked a simple Korean ceremony to a Hebrew tradition? Everyone knew of the mysterious signs. The smoke rising in curls until it formed shapes, messages from the beyond that spoke with authority. This was more than superstition. This was spiritual. Could it be that the ancients had locked shared truths in their rituals? Was it possible that the souls of the past still stirred in sacred spaces, murmuring wisdom just outside human reach? Tension tightened like a noose. A scream pierced the night. The villagers jumped, eyes wide with disbelief. "Did you see that?" someone whispered, pointing to a figure cloaked in shadows. Was it a spirit, or a deception woven by fear? The shaman's voice dropped to a whisper, yet echoed louder than thunder. "You are not alone," he declared, eyes scanning the crowd, locking onto a young woman trembling at the edge. As her heart pounded, she felt a pull, a draw between these two worlds. She sensed the ages colliding, timeline merging, both histories fighting for recognition. In that moment she realized, was she chosen, or merely a pawn in an eternal game? The villagers held their breaths. The earth itself seemed to vibrate, waiting with them. What secrets lay hidden in the intersection of faith and folklore? Hey! Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon, and while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The flickering lights cast an ethereal glow over the gathering, the atmosphere thick with anticipation and dread. As the shaman's words quivered in the night, the villagers felt the ground tremble softly beneath their feet, as if the very earth were responding to an unseen force. The air was saturated with the sense of burning herbs mingling with the sweat of fear and anticipation. "Return," the shaman intoned, using hands adorned with talismans to signify both propitiation and invocation. The young woman at the edge of the circle felt the tug of something ancient within her. It pulled, urging her forward. She recalled the stories whispered by her grandmother's fire, tales of beings who walked between worlds, carrying messages from the divine. Who were these beings, she wondered? Were they the spirits of her ancestors or angelic messengers sent to guide her? Suddenly, in the distance, a reverberating boom echoed through the Velisa sound reminiscent of thunder, yet devoid of rain. The villagers turned their gazes toward the mountains, hearts pounding as if they were caught in a tempest of revelation. The young woman recognized it now, as her thoughts raced. It was the voice of God, that same voice that had called to Moses from the burning bush, that had thundered on Mount Sinai. Was this the voice that resonated through the ages, binding all people in a similar quest for understanding? The shaman raised his arms, channeling the growing energy from the heavens above. The winds rose in response, swirling around the gathering, and for a fleeting moment, a luminescent figure appeared above the trees, a vision cloaked in shimmering light. Gasps escaped the villagers' lips. Some fell to their knees, overwhelmed by the power of the moment. Others shielded their eyes, fearing what they dare not comprehend. "Look," the shaman commanded. It is the spirit of connection itself, a tapestry woven from our shared truths, bridging the vast chasm of time. He gestured toward the luminous figure, who appeared to beckon the young woman to approach. Time stood still as she hesitated, caught between the curious pull of destiny and the weight of cherished fears passed down from generations. In her mind, visions cascaded. She saw ancient rituals of burning incense in the temple, surrounded by priests in long robes. Then she glimpsed the quiet strength of the shamans, invoking nature's spirits, weaving together the earthly and the ethereal. The threads of faith, she realized, were all intertwined. The figure beckoned with hands glowing like the morning sun rising over a horizon once thought impossible to reach. The villagers felt a surge of collective energy, their individual worries and doubts melting away, replaced by an overwhelming sense of unity and purpose. It was as if they were participants in a cosmic dance, swirling around a single truth, an understanding that traversed their cultural divides. As the shaman continued chanting, a sudden rush swept through the gathering, leaving the young woman breathless. "Who am I within this mystery?" she whispered to herself, a question too vast to answer in the stifling air. Was she merely a vessel or a pivotal point in this divine convergence? The cries of spirits long past mingled with her beating heart, exploding with fervor, as if they too longed for recognition in the modern age. And as the luminous figure flickered and faded, the magnitude of her realization hit her hard. The connections woven through centuries were powerful yet delicate, coiled through the very lives of those who stood in that moment. The villagers fell into an expectant silence, as if the wind itself had stilled to listen. What revelation awaited them in the tapestry of faith and the whispers of their ancestors? Would they be willing to embrace the truths that lay just beyond their grasp? The night held its breath, waiting for their response. As darkness enveloped the gathering in the valley, the air crackled with burgeoning energy that hummed like a distant melody, echoing through the spirits present. The young woman, standing transfixed by the fading light of the luminous figure, felt her heart race with an urgency that transcended her understanding. This moment was richer than mere myth. It was a Kalingan invitation to explore the sacred ties that bound her to both the earth and the heavens. With each rhythm of the shaman's chant, she began to sense the ancient footprints of her ancestors, standing steadfast against the tide of time. Were they here, seeking this communion as fervently as she was? She could almost hear their voices entwined with the winds, like leaves carried along a stream, blending with the essence of creation. It resonated deep within. What if these feelings were not hers alone? What if they were echoes from a shared past reaching across cultures and epochs? Driven by a force she could neither deny nor fathom, the young woman stepped forward, her feet finding confidence on the path paved by her forebears. The villagers, caught in awe, hardly moved, their breaths suspended, hearts beating in unison with her spirit. She felt an invisible thread guiding her, leading her toward understanding. And in that divine communion, she began to recall her grandmother's tales with clarity. Stories of healing circles, of sacred dances under starlit skies, and prayers woven into the very fabric of existence. Connect, she thought. We are all trying to connect. The words stirred her mind as she drew closer to the focal point, aware now that each ritual, no matter how culturally distinct, echoed a universal truth: humanity's quest for knowledge, for healing, for belonging. She heard the whispers of the past, cultures intertwined like vines growing towards the sun. As she approached the place reserved for sacred purpose, the gathering drew breath together, their collective energy shifting to meet her boldness. The shaman's arms lowered as he sensed the transformation unfolding, and in that moment, the vibrant tapestry of cultures collided, painting a picture of unity and divinity. The energy lifted, swirling around them in a dance of understanding, igniting memories etched in the hearts of every soul present. Beside her, a figure emerged, an elder woman from the village, her eyes shining with wisdom. The woman spoke softly, words that seemed to carry the weight of generations. Do you see, child? The ancients speak through you. Our ancestors sought the same light, the same love. Their stories breathe through all of us, intertwining our paths. The young woman felt tears welling, overwhelmed by the shared heritage that radiated from her and those around her. Yet, with each passing second, uncertainty crept into her hirtan uninvited guest. What did this portend? What sacrifices would the acknowledgement of these shared truths involve? The shaman raised his voice once more, urging the villagers to embrace the energies swirling around them. Let us honor this connection, this divine interweaving. We hold the threads of hope and fear alike, each deserving of recognition. His words kindled a spark of courage within her. Here, they were more than isolated beings. They formed a living vessel of faith, alive and pulsing with purpose. But still a shadow loomed. Questions hung in the air like thick fog. What was the balance between power and responsibility? Were they ready to delve into the depths of understanding that lay ahead? The past offered them guidance, yet it also demanded reflection. Who would they become when stripped bare of ignorance and fear? The luminous figure flickered once more, appearing distinctly now to the elder woman, who raised her hands in invocation. Could the spirit facilitate a bridge to the unknown, a means to unveil the darkness that still lurked within the hearts of many? The villagers tensed, each soul beginning to grasp the gravity of awakening. Yet hesitant to recognize their fears together, a silence fell upon the assembly, the kind that invites introspection and vulnerability. Would they embrace this intricate web of shared heritage, or would they shrink back when confronted with the rawness of their truths? The stars dotted the sky, glimmering with their own stories, and the land lay before them, patiently waiting for a revelation. What secrets lingered just beneath the surface of their collective history, ready to transform them forever if only they would dare to look? As the hushed breath of the assembly lingered in the penetrating darkness, a curious tension quivered through the air. The flickering light of the luminous figure, who had become an emblem of both comfort and challenge, palpitated with a newfound intensity. The young woman, still encircled by the collective consciousness, felt the pulse of anticipation beat in time with her own heart. The elder woman, still standing resolutely beside her, tilted her head slightly, as if attuning to a frequency that lay beyond mere words. "Child," she said gently, "the paths we tread are marked by tests that have spanned the ages. We stand at a crossroads, not merely of our own making, but as a continuation of rituals once forgotten. Can you feel them? Each step connects you to the spirit of the land, the air, and the sacred tradition of healing that has traveled through the veins of both your ancestors and mine." As if on cue, a low murmur surged throughout the gathering, echoing the ancient chants of shamanic words that had been tended to carefully over centuries. Within the dance of the tongues, a realization began to bloom. This shared experience bore a striking resemblance to the biblical gatherings of old, where the tribes would congregate to seek wisdom from the heavens. A memory sparked in her mind, a fragile thread of scriptural teaching from her childhood. "Gather the elders," the sacred text whispered through her memory, "and let wisdom guide your hearts." In that sacred space, she sensed the mountainous weight of history, as if the prayers of ancient kings, prophets, and sages intermingled with those of the villagers. What if, she breathed, the thought escaping into the stillness, our practices are more connected than we realize? What if the healing rites and the calls for communion are all part of the same sacred narrative? Her words wove their way through the attendees, and the shaman's eyes sparkled as he acknowledged the electric charge now weaving them together. "The connections between our sentinels of faith," he concluded, "are bound in the deep yearning for divine Tucha purification through ancient rituals that traverse mountains, seas, and generations. Can you not sense this holy resonance echoing in our hearts?" Yet, within the warmth of revelation, shadows still flickered. The young woman's heart raced. What burdens would they take up together? The call for unity, while filled with love, floated heavily with the responsibility of acknowledging their shared wounds. The ancestral threads were both comforting and demanding, asking each participant to confront the darkness that had been painstakingly tucked away. Drawing closer to the luminous figure, she felt the rumble of connection escalate. It beckoned her spirit forward, urging her to reach out not only for understanding but deeply for healing. Could it be that through our gathered energies, we can unearth the hidden truths of our shared past, both the sacred and the shattered? She pondered poignantly, her faith in the journey blending with trepidation. A ripple stirred among the villagers, an awakening of collective bravery, but also a simmering fear. The stories of pain must be accounted for. One man finally spoke, his voice woven with strength yet laced with vulnerability. But at what cost do we unveil such wounds? Will the future bear our burdens? Or will we find new life in reconciliation? The air thickened with questions, igniting a fierce discussion that pressed upon the hearts of all gathered. Each soul was a vessel of story, and the darkness within flickered with the promise of the light they longed to embody. The luminous figure remained, its wisdom hovering just above their communal discourse, urging a deeper reflection as the stars shimmered like ancestral eyes watching over them. The shaman raised his arms high once more, a gesture both fervent and liberating. Together, we stand upon the precipice of knowledge that can transform our despair into a tapestry of grace. Are we ready to heal? Are we poised to embrace the truths that can illuminate our path forward? In the fragile silence that followed, a question emerged, weaving through the hearts of the village like a thread of light. What would they uncover about themselves when they dared to confront the depth of their shared history? Could this communion of spirits reveal a profound truth hidden within the shadows? As the gathering lingered beneath the celestial canopy, the weight of destiny pressed down upon them. Skepticism and faith intertwined, just as ancient roots intertwined beneath a sprawling tree. The young woman, emboldened yet apprehensive, felt the raw energy of vulnerability surge around her. It thrummed through the earth, echoing the whispers of those who had come before them, and it implored her to listen more deeply to the echoing histories of their shared past. The luminous figure flickered again, its light illuminating the resolve and uncertainty embossed upon the faces of her companions. It pulsed not in singular brilliance, but rather in the kaleidoscopic colors of their collective hopes and fears. Listen, it seemed to call, to the voices of the forgotten. The elder woman's gaze shifted from the radiant form to the restless crowd. What binds us, dear hearts, is not merely our longing for healing but the unyielding shadows of our ancestors. They have walked these lands, carrying both burdens and blessing. Each wound is a story, a testament to survival. Her voice wrapped around the assembly, weaving a cocoon of acceptance. That survival, the young woman interjected, inspired by the elder's fire, may mirror the tales once told in the ancient scrolls that chronicled struggles, exoduses, and revelations. Could we not look upon our tribulations with the same lens? Could healing emerge from understanding what has caused us to falter in the shadows? As she spoke, a palpable shift enveloped the assembly, a dawning realization that their own narratives were dissipating into the fabric of something vaster. The air hummed with muted astonishment, as if unseen threads had pulled taut between hearts that surged toward familiarity. The man who had previously voiced the cost of unveiling their collective wounds now stood taller. What if, he proposed, the ancient rites of healing we're rediscovering are not just personal journeys but a shared pilgrimage to reclaim the sacred? What if the spirits we honor through our shamanic practices also mirror the divine interventions of old? This could be a profound affirmation that our traditions are echoes from the same source. The conversation surged. Voices whispered like leaves stirred by a gentle wind, intertwining the complexities of their diverging paths. The shaman nodded knowingly. Have we not always longed for connection, to find ourselves within the divine narrative? Our practices and beliefs, reflective of a similar yearning for transcendence, may ultimately lead us toward the light. Look how far we have wandered in separation. Are we ready to bridge these profound truths? At this moment, a weighty silence descended, thick with potential. The young woman felt the pulse within Hera lessons soaring within, begging to be unearthed. Here was a calling, a challenge deeper than mere acknowledgement of similarities. It beckoned them to foster a reunion of traditions that had spoken in silence for centuries. Yet a question lingered. Could they embrace such revelations while not shying away from the darker truths hidden within spheres of pain? Would facing these ancestors both sacred and wayward open the door to healing, or drive them deeper apart? As the luminous figure dimmed, illuminating the growing dusk around them, she sensed a vulnerable beauty in vulnerability, a paradox of both fear and possibility. In acknowledging our wounds, she spoke at last, her heart racing with the gravity of her realization. Might we not also discover our greatest gifts? How do we, as a united community, pull from the depths of shadow to find grace rather than despair. The air trembled with her words, pregnant with discovery yet shadowed with uncertainty. As they stood upon the precipice of revelation together, a profound question echoed in their hearts. What would happen when they ventured into the abyss of their collective history? Would they find healing or just further entrench themselves in their darkness? As darkness settled more deeply around the gathering, the air thickened with anticipation, a readiness not for mere words, but for the sacred act of remembrance that loomed before them. The elder woman, whose voice had woven a tapestry of shared history, now turned her eyes toward the luminous figure, whose flickering presence had begun to take on a solemnity closer to that of a watchful guardian. Let us not shy away from the echoes of our past, she urged gently, for in every shadow lies a truth yearning to be understood. The crowd nodded, a quiet agreement floating like fireflies in the night. In that moment, the young woman felt a stirring within her heart, a pulse of purpose that resonated with the elder's words. She stepped forward, invoking the courage that had lain dormant within her until now. What if we embarked on a journey of remembrance? She suggested, her voice resonating with a newfound clarity. We could each share a story of our ancestors' tales of struggle and triumph, pain and healing. In honoring their narratives, might we reveal the sacred threads that connect our struggles to those written in the chronicles of old? The man who had once raised his voice in dissent shifted uneasily before finally speaking. Yet, what if some stories fracture us further? What if the darkness we uncover splinters our spirits rather than uniting us? His hesitation was palpable, but his presence suggested a willingness to explore despite the unease. The shaman stepped closer, his eyes gleaming with the wisdom of ages. Darkness and light danced together, just as ancestors' bones lie intertwined with the earth. We must confront our uneasy transformations. This journey will require us to walk through the shadows, the stories that we've buried like seeds in the soil, waiting for the rain to coax them into bloom. With a gentle confidence, the elder continued, let us uncover these narratives not as isolated tales, but as a symphony of voices that speak of survival and resilience. It is the nature of life's tapestry, woven from both fervent threads of celebration and onyx strands of sorrow. In the gathering silence, a woman with a bright spirit stepped forward, her hand raised as if summoning the courage of those who had gone before her. I carry a story of my grandmother, who once was a healer in our village. Her remedies drew from the hues of nature, yet her practices bore the weight of stigma due to the suspicion around women like her. What I have inherited is an understanding that healing comes not only from physical remedies but also through the heart's willingness to embrace vulnerability. The gathering listened, wrapped in her words as they experienced the all-too-familiar flicker of shared burdens. Suddenly, the luminous figure brightened for a moment, echoing her sentiments, and the crowd felt the invitation to continue sharing their ancestral tales. Each story unfurled like delicate petals around them. They shared not only hardships but the small triumphs that punctuated their history's moments of grace that danced in contrast to their struggles. With laughter and sorrow intermingled in the night air, new questions emerged. How have our traditions persisted through strife? In what manner do their ancient practices parallel those we call sacred today? As they exchanged, the young woman felt a weight shift in her heart. Perhaps the connection between their traditions was already self-evident, echoing through centuries of human experiential recognition of the divine that transcended culture, time, and place. The beautiful chaos of stories stirred the air until, at last, a weary traveler approached, weaving through the crowd. His lined face bore the marks of experience as he gazed upon the group. I have heard tales of wisdom and anguish, and yet he paused, looking from one to the other. What if we find ourselves not just healing wounds but forging a pathway to something yet unknown? His inquiry hung heavily among them, saturated with curiosity, igniting souls yearning for connection beyond mere survival. What awaits us if we dare to believe that we hold not only the burdens of our ancestors but also their enlightening gifts? The night sky above them twinkled as if encouraging the intersection of earth and divine. The young woman opened her mouth to respond, but no words came, only a sense of profound wonder that filled her being. What might their collective healing lead to, and could it unite them in a way that changed the very fabric of their existence? The wind shifted gently, carrying with it an unspoken promise of revelation. The traveler's words reverberated amongst the gathered souls, stirring something ancient that lay dormant within each of Thema marrow-deep ache for understanding and connection, both to their roots and the greater mysteries that entwine their lives. The luminous figure flickered again, a beacon transcending the fading light, guiding them into deeper contemplation. Is not every story a thread of a grand tapestry? It seemed to whisper, urging the hearts present to delve beyond their immediate tales. The young woman's spirit surged with a sense of urgency. There were connections to be felt, binding their shared reality to something more profound as the stories continued to flow. One voice broke from the group, a man with an earnest glow in his eyes. I have always been drawn to our shared rituals, he said, drawing the attention of the gathering. In our practices, there are echoes of something greater. The sacred dances, the rites of passage, all mirror elements I have encountered in ancient texts, those of the Israelites and their traditions. The circle, the fire, the water, these were not mere symbols but sacred offerings to the divine. The crowd grew still, their rapt attention directed toward him. The young woman felt a familiar pull, as if the whispers of ancestors danced in the edges of the air around them. Our ancestors understood something we have almost forgotten, he continued, his voice steady yet infused with wonder. The essence of life is woven through these rituals. The very grit of our struggles births wisdom that transcends generations. What if this wisdom is the bridge to a new understanding? Spoke another voice, a young man who had listened quietly until then. What if our struggles, like those of the Israelites, are reflections of a deeper calling? Are we not on the edge of our own exodus, a step into the unknown that awaits us if we acknowledge these practices? The flickering light resonated once more, as if affirming the interconnectedness of their dialogue. Memories began to surface in the young woman's heart, not just personal ones, but the shimmering fabric of her lineage, recalling the memories of generations who walked barefoot on sacred earth. Each step they took whispered of a connection to the divine through sweat and sorrow, triumph and healing. Another elder, her features softened by age but her pride still fierce, spoke up with fervor. In the ancient texts of our traditions, much like the teachings found in your scriptures, we discover that the divine often moves in moments of stillness and upheaval. The spirit of our ancestors whispers to us not just through stories but through the endurance of the earth itself, a communion that asks for recognition. The gathering nodded in agreement, an undercurrent of realization washing over the crowd. The luminous figure shimmered again, illuminating the very ground they stood upon, as if revealing sacred soil where their stories converged. What if by unearthing these connections, we might not only honor our ancestors but also ignite a fiery path toward reconciliation? Another voice ventured, rich with intent. The question hovered before them, evoking laughter and sorrow, strength and fragility within their collective consciousness. Could it be that they, simple bearers of stories, were now standing at an intersection of revelation? Was this heavily woven patchwork of shared beliefs and practices destined to blossom into something transformative for them all? Contemplation filled the circle of souls, each one grappling with the tension of this budding understanding. It seemed they were collectively brushing against the edges of divine truth, an invitation beyond the horizon of their traditions and understandings. Yet a silent trepidation settled amongst them. Would this journey ventured into the unknown reveal something they were not yet ready to embrace? Could their stories, while healing, perhaps unveil unimagined burdens alongside the rich legacies they cherished? The young woman looked around the gathering, finding connections forming not just in words but in the very essence of their beings. They stood poised on the brink of discovery, but as they lifted their voices in unison, one question resonated among them. What revelations await when we journey into the uncharted territories of our stories, and will we be brave enough to embrace them, whatever they may be? The flickering light dimmed momentarily before surging brighter, igniting the twilight with a glow that seemed almost sentient. It cast shadows that danced like echoes of the past, bending toward the gathered souls, nudging their minds toward reflections that felt surreal in nature. A wave of introspection washed over them, as they became acutely aware that each one carried the weight of their stories, interwoven threads that formed a grand narrative marked by resilience and longing. As silence enveloped the assembly, The young woman felt an urgency swell within her, not just to listen but to voice her own experiences and revelations. What if all our struggles are calls to awaken? She pondered aloud, her words like seeds planted in fertile ground. The stories we share have the power to illuminate the paths of those who walked before us. Isn't it through our trials that we find the essence of our faith? Whispers of agreement rustled through the crowd like the wind through the trees, their resonance stirring deep memories of ancient rituals. The man who had previously spoken caught her eye, nodding as he interjected, "Indeed, in our struggles lie the roots of our shared spirit. The resonances you speak of match with those of my studies. Old shamanistic practices hold a mirror to the essence of biblical rites. The reality is, these connections may not be mere coincidence. They embody the same search for grace amidst chaos." A twinge of curiosity crept into the hearts of those listening. The elder among them, wise from years of nurturing community, leaned in closer. "In the texts of both of our traditions speak of the sacred dance between humanity and the divine. The fire that warms, the water that cleanses thee have always been symbols of transformation." Her gaze swept across the gathering, meeting each eye with unyielding assurance. These elements remind us that our communion with the divine is not isolated to one culture or one story. It is a universal thread binding us all. With that, the young man who had raised the initial query, emboldened by the exchange, added, "Consider the shared motifs in our narratives: the journeys through wilderness, communion with spirits, and the call to return home. Is not the journey itself reflective of an ongoing conversation with the divine? Are we not summoned to reclaim these connections, to embrace them as part of our identity?" An electrifying energy thrummed through the gathering as they began to see that their individual and collective journeys were indeed mirrored reflections, not merely coincidental likenesses but invitations to deeper understanding. They were standing at the confluence of ancient truths, awash in the grasp of a mystery both thrilling and daunting. Yet, with each step closer to this revelation, we must confront not only the truths that nurture us but also those that challenge us, spoke one woman, her voice a gentle yet resolute melody amidst the reverberation of ideas. What if the past we honor holds shadows we have yet to face? The question lingered heavily in the air, a whisper that threaded itself through the fabric of their gathering. The young woman felt her heart race. The thrill of discovery was laced with trepidation. Could confronting their shared histories lead them down paths fraught with alienation? Or could it give birth to a more profound sense of community? In the dimming twilight, those gathered felt a sacred yet profound confirmation hovering silently around them, the luminous figure shifting slightly in the backdrop. It seemed to echo the sentiments swirling in the air, beckoning them toward deeper exploration. And so they sat in stillness, reflecting upon the tangled web of their combined legacies, unified by trials yet divided by fear of the unknown. What further revelations lay hidden beneath the surface of their cultures, waiting for brave souls to illuminate their essence? Would embracing these strange yet familiar ties enrich their understanding, or would it unravel their notions of who they were meant to be? As the fire crackled before them, a unified question hovered softly within hearts. What if our greatest discoveries are not what we find, but what we dare to confront within ourselves? As the fire's flickering embers dimmed and flared, a profound stillness settled over the gathering, urging them to truly listen not just to each other, but to the echoes of their past reverberating within. The young woman, still holding the weight of her question, glanced toward the elder, whose gentle gaze appeared to trace ancient pathways in the air. "Let us not shrink back from our shadows," the elder said, her voice carrying the weight of generations. "For it is in the acknowledgement of our fears and the pain of our history that we can step confidently into engagement with the divine. Remember the lamentations of the prophets. There lies a beauty in grief, a witness to resilience." She paused, allowing her words to wash over the gathering like a soothing balm. Shared sorrow can forge bonds hitherto unknown. Are we prepared, then, to explore both light and shadow? They nodded cautiously, aware that traversing the chasms of their collective stories might reveal fears best left unexamined. A man with lines etched deeply across his forehead spoke next, his voice calm yet weighted by authenticity. "In my study of our practices, I have come to understand that our ancestors invoked spirits not solely to seek favor or protection, but to understand the profound complexities of life, the duality of joy and suffering, creation and destruction. His voice softened. Could it be that our rituals contain the very heart of this acknowledgement? A bridge between human longing and divine mystery. The young woman felt a stirring, resonating with familiar yet elusive sentiments. She wondered, could the traditions they practiced have been responses to the same divine whisper? The air was thick with contemplation, and yet, uncertainty hung like a cloud. As night deepened, the luminous figure in the backdrop intensified, casting ethereal light upon the assembly. It pulsed rhythmically, reflecting the heartbeat of their unvoiced questions. Could it be that this light signified their inquiries, an invitation to decipher not only their outward expressions of faith, but the inner landscapes they avoided? A rustle of anticipation danced among them, each person feeling the magnetic pull toward a deeper exploration of faith and identity. But with anticipation came a hush of fear. There was the spoke of potential reckoning in engaging with the intricate symmetry between their practices. What would it mean to fully embrace their tales, woven through both despair and celebration? A young woman at the edge, quiet yet attentive, spoke with a tentative yet unwavering steadiness. What if our shared journeys are not only connected through the praise we sing but also through the cries we utter? Is it possible that the spirits we summon in shamanic traditions echo the prayers uttered on sacred altars? Are they reflections of our deepest desires for connection, understanding, and healing in a world that often feels fractured? Rumbles of agreement cascaded like waves, the discussions growing fervent. Yet, deep within each heart, a question hung palpably, heavy and profound. Would they find connection through shared sorrow or risk creating fissures by timidly brushing aside the truths of their histories? As the fire crackled and the shadows danced, there resided an undercurrent of sacred curiosity, a beautiful tension inviting each soul to delve deeper into the essence of their practices. Beneath the layers of history, what awaited them? How would their understanding transform if they embraced both light and shadow, weaving them into the fabric of their shared identities? With the glow of the fire illuminating the intimate gathering, they were left to ponder a daunting yet necessary inquiry. What mysteries lie dormant in the stories we have not yet dared to tell, and can we find the courage to embrace them together? As dawn broke over the small village of Gwangju, a soft light glimmered through the ancient trees, illuminating the remnants of a night filled with revelations. The villagers, once caught in the grip of fear and uncertainty, now stood transformed, gathered around the glow of a fire that crackled with the energy of change. The air was thick with both the fragrance of smoke and the palpable presence of ancient spirits, watching closely as history unfolded. The young woman, whose heart had guided her through the intertwining realms of faith, felt an electric hum reverberate within her, echoing the sacred threads they had begun to weave together. No longer were they simply participants of a single narrative. They had emerged as a collective tapestry, rich and complex. It was as though the luminous figure that had visited them through the night emerged now from within each of their hearts, urging them to step into a new dawn of understanding. With the elder's stories still swirling in her mind, she took a tentative step forward, feeling eyes upon her eyes filled with encouragement and echoes of shared stories. What could it mean? She began, her voice steady and soft yet formidable. If we embraced both the pain and the healing that our traditions offer? What if we allowed our ancestors to hold space in our hearts and our histories? Perhaps in doing so, we reclaim not only our narratives but also the unity forged through our shared struggles. Whispers of agreement rustled through the attendees, many nodding, recognizing the truth in her words. The shaman, standing at the center, raised his arms to the sky, invoking a sacred call. Let us celebrate this shared journey, where our roots interlace, where the past and present meet. For it is through the echoes of our ancestors that we learn to walk with purpose and grace. We are all custodians of a divine legacy, healers, seekers and warriors of our stories. As the sun rose, bathing them in golden hues, the spirits that had danced among them felt invigorated by the burgeoning energy that had taken shape. They understood that their collective strength resided not merely in their similarities, but also in their willingness to face differences with open hearts. A new vertical thread of connection had been forged, one that reached towards the heavens and anchored into the earth, a model for how to navigate the complex labyrinth of humanity. Around the fire, the villagers began to share their hope and fears, stories demanding to be told. With each voice that rose, secrets hidden within the shadows were brought to light, and pain was transformed into empowering affirmation. The way forward was illuminated through vulnerability, a shared willingness to confront the darkness, to embrace conversation fueled by compassion, solidarity, and courage. One elder spoke of an ancient ritual, once performed at dawn, that honored the ancestors by symbolically planting seeds of commitment to nurturing growth from the earth. As we stand in solidarity today, I ask you to plant seeds of remembrance and healing within your hearts. May we foster growth from the stories that have defined us but have also held us captive, she urged, her voice creating an aura of solemn determination around them. With that, the assembly began to move, each person stepping towards the edge of the gathering, select handfuls of earth spilling from fingers to touch the roots that cradled their ancient trees. They kneeled, digging small holes of remembrance, surrounding each seed with whispered promises of honor and understanding. The shaman watched intently, his heart swelling as he witnessed this sacred act of reconciliation and rebirth. With each seed we plant, we are saying yes to the past, to the present, to the unknown future that awaits. This act is a pledge to cherish the truths we have uncovered, to listen to the voices that connect our ancestors' wisdom to the awakenings of today as they shared quiet laughter and expectations of growth. The luminous figure appeared once more, this time, not above them, but within their hearts. It radiated, casting a warmth that enveloped the villagers, uniting them in something profoundly important. They understood in this moment that their strength lay in their connection to the collective, as well as their individual journeys through the sacred interweaving of their stories. The sun rose higher, heralding a new era in Gwangju, a time where the whispers of the mountains and the echoes of their ancestors would no longer serve as a path fraught with shadows, but would illuminate the way forward, a shared pilgrimage of healing. As they all stood together, hand in hand, the air vibrated with the resonance of hope and understanding. They had discovered that their sacred practices were not separate but threads in the grand tapestry of the divine. In vulnerability, they found unwavering strength. In connection, they forged a sense of belonging. They were ready, finally, to embrace what lay ahead as they released their hands and turned towards the rising sun. A new commitment echoed through the cool morning air, a promise to honor their journeys, to tell their stories, both joyous and painful, united by the sincerity of shared love. Because, in truth, the greatest revelation was not just in their healing but in the wisdom of connection that transcended time and space. And so, as they moved together toward the horizon painted with the dawn of possibilities, the villagers of Gwangju felt a profound sense of purpose, a reminder that beyond the struggles, they were woven together through a divine thread that would guide them through the ages to come. In this unity, they found their greatest treasure, faith transcending boundaries, love bridging dividends, a legacy that would pulse with life for generations yet to come.